Assalamualaikum. Today we have a very prestigious guest with us, Dr. Hurriyah El Islamy. Yeah, Dr. Hurriyah El Islamy is a Bank Indonesia award winner as the best national and global Islamic finance activist, proponent, and the first recipient of the Anugerah Tokoh Alumni awarded by IIUM, who is also the CEO and founder of HGC Firm. She serves as a member of the Board of Trustees of RFI Foundation and the Board of Directors Ethis Global. She is also a pleno member of the Indonesian National Sharia Council of NUI, AAOIFI Master Trainer, FAA Certified Assessor, IFN Global Advisory Board Member, Sharia Board Member and Strategic Advisor of Islamic Fintech Alliance. She was the Executive Board of Badan Pengelola Keuangan Haji Indonesia, Presidential Decree, the ISDB's APIF Supervisory Committee, IMF expert in Islamic finance, and a member of the Islamic Finance Advisory Council of the AIFC. In addition to being a practitioner with impact, she had also drafted laws and regulations for several countries that drew the face and the state of those nations today. Despite the intensity of her contributions to the industry, her contributions and legacy in form of academic publications, public speech, etc., are equally as strong. The awards, her high-level appointment, and prestige engagement worldwide speak for her repute and track record. MashaAllah. Doctor, that is a very prestige introduction. Can I also say that before I go into the question, recently you had a session, right? I think about 4 days ago, or a few days ago, that you posted on LinkedIn. You had an event that was celebrating your birthday as well. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think personally, if I may say, is that Dr. Hurriyah has actually impacted me a bit on her contribution as a Muslim woman who actually goes out and do so much. Yeah, because I think Dr. Hurriyah also has given a lot of personal point of view perspective in terms of gender roles and stuff like that. So I think without further ado, I would jump into the questions to get a little bit into your head so that we can inshallah value add to our listeners. Yeah. Okay. So Dr. Hurriyah, for someone who might not be familiar with Islamic finance, can you give us a snapshot of what Islamic finance regulations look like today and how have they changed over time? And where do you think the current regulatory is actually headed towards?
Well, thank you very much, Nana, for the question. And I like the way how you phrase it, that this is actually meant for those who are not familiar with the matter. So I'll try to make it as simple as possible. If we were to, in general term, if we are looking at the global Islamic finance all over the world, we could see it's quite obvious, actually. Of course, all the regulators, they try to make Islamic finance relevant. So they put so much effort amending the law, introducing new law, regulation, etc. Because especially, with the fast pace and change induced so much by the technology, in particular after the pandemic. But if we were to actually group the approach overall, I would say there are actually either we have the country that is leading and has been leading, but otherwise we could say, some are going quite lenient or rather hardly regulated, and that will include, for example, UK and Singapore. And we have, on the other hand, the extreme one. So we have one in the middle, which is cool, which is fine. But we have the extreme, which is hardly regulated. And on the other hand, we have those over-regulated, such as Indonesia and Oman, that somehow actually made the industry feel like it is hard to really operate because of, there are so many regulations that they have to comply with. The flexibility is actually a bit lacking. But despite of all this, I'm happy to share with you there has been exciting progress as well in the Islamic finance world, including in Indonesia, for example. Recently, we have the new law. It's a new law number 4 of year 2023 on the we call it UU P2SK, Undang-Undang Pengembangan dan Penguatan Sektor Keuangan. If I translate loosely, it will be to strengthen and to grow the financial sector, where including with it Islamic finance, Islamic banking. And on the other hand, we also have Saudi, also has an exciting development there for the Islamic finance, because in order to have the level playing field, because of the strong influence of Sharia. So Saudi is quite unique. Some countries, in order to create level playing field, they need to actually give the push to the Sharia, right? So you can have the Islamic the level playing field. But in Saudi, because the Sharia is very strong, they need to actually give. They try to neutralize by not allowing the use of Islamic to be coined with the banking services in the past. But the new development, which is exciting and I very much welcome, and recently 2022, 2023, they have already introduced the Islamic governance framework for the banks and capital market respectively. So this is something new. And other than these major changes, otherwise, your question, how they have changed over time in terms of trend, is more or less the same. More or less the same. Doesn't mean that there is no change, but the trend is the same. As I said, Malaysia is still leading. Bahrain later is very accommodating in terms of the regulation. And now they are even more accommodating for the fintech areas. And there are new players, yes, if you consider that as a change. But these new players, mashallah, they have been doing quite well. Notably, for example, in just before the pandemic, we have the AIFSG introducing Islamic Finance in Kazakhstan under the AIFSG umbrella. So there is something quite interesting, and what they have done well, this is something I should commend. The fact that they don't try to reinvent the wheel. So why they could introduce something that relatively new in a rather new area as well, because they actually brought in the expertise. They tried to get from so many countries. I was actually a board member in the Islamic Advisory Council as well. And they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They just took the best expertise from these experts and implemented in the AIFSG. So that's actually a very smart move. And then this has been done actually by some countries too, who are relatively new to Islamic finance as well. And that is actually quite a smart move. So looking at this trend altogether, we put together how it is the old-timer, which is still leading, those countries that have been there for a while, and those the new one. Put together, we could see clearly that they are all heading towards trying to facilitate the industry and to create level playing field vis-a-vis the conventional bank. And now that, because in the past there has been this kind of, I would say it's a mistaken, but it's a fallacy. Because people think, Sharia banking or Islamic banking, as we commonly call it, is actually meant for the Muslim. But today it has been proven that no, it's not only for the Muslim. It's actually many people also choose Islamic banking. Well, value proposition is the most important factor, of course. But other than that, also for ethical reason. So we are heading towards the right direction. It could be better optimized, but I think we are at the right track. Yeah.
Okay. I definitely agree with you, but I'm shy to say that. Oh my God, like Singapore. I have to say though that Singapore is really we're really very lenient in terms of our regulatory towards Islamic finance or Sharia regulatory even. Yeah.
Oh, that's not a bad thing, by the way. I don't mean it to be bad.
Yeah.
Bad thing, really. I mean, like given the fact that Singapore is already Singapore itself is a top for potential center in Asia. So that actually a self-evident that Singapore has got the right infrastructure, the regulation and everything for banking in general. So this is something that Islamic bank could leverage on. Because if I may just spill a little secret, when I was a group director in one banking group. I should not mention the name here, but during my period there, we witnessed the best performing in terms of growth. Yeah, not necessarily in terms of volume, because of course Singapore isn't that very big country compared to other countries which are also under our group. But in terms of growth, Singapore is one of the best performing. Because why? We leverage on the best of your regulation that you have for the financial industry. So we leverage on that. And for the Sharia governance, we leverage on our strength. You see, there, of course, there are two sides of the coin. There are two sides of the sword. This is good. This work well when you are dealing with big institution that already has a firm and established Sharia governance framework. So that means you don't have to worry on the Sharia side of it. They just actually focus on the business. But if it's a newly established company that doesn't even, like maybe they're still looking on what should we do to make it Islamic, and then unfortunately you are lacking on it, this may not be good for them. This may not be good for the customer either, because then nobody can actually tell exactly whether what they're doing is what they claim they are doing.
Yeah. So from your perspective, this Islamic finance in Singapore playing field is that we can actually fall back on our strong governance and our already established regulators.
Yes, you can. That's what we have. What we did actually. You can definitely because at the end of the day, Nana, Islamic banking is business first before it's Islamic.
Yes.
I'm not saying it is more important, no. No, I'm not saying that, because you see, the thing is, in Islam, even if you go back to the very basic principle in usul fiqh, fil muamalah al-ibaha. So we go to the very fundamental, the very basic rule. Basically, everything is allowed. So that there's a starting point. Therefore, I said it's business first before it's Islamic. So you see, if given the choice between you have the world-class financial regulation, but no Sharia, for example, and the other one you have the world-class Sharia, but non-existent or very lousy financial regulation, I will choose the first. I will pick the former anytime. Because you see, of course, when we talk about banking, when we talk about financing, it never be like only two players there. It's not only just regulator and the industry, but one thing which is also the other one that is equally as important and could be the most important one to protect is the customers, the public. So if your banking regulation is not that strong, you can claim anything. Yeah, but that's why governance is very important. But given that we have gone this far, that's why it depends on the market. Certain markets, I think it is fine that it works that way. But in other markets where Islamic banking has been there for so long, it is high time that you have specific, because at the end of the day, as I said, you need the assurance. How to have the assurance that it is really Islamic banking? Someone need to monitor it. Someone need to measure it. If there's no regulation on that, how are you going to measure?
Yeah.
Are you going to ensure that that part is actually monitored?
Agree. Yeah. So with that said, how I know it's a little bit more difficult or daunting to have like Sharia law, in the whole world, right? To have a world legal system using Sharia law. But maybe what are the challenges that you actually face or that you have encountered when you're trying to make Islamic finance practices fit into different legal systems?
Yeah. Well, if I may share with you before I actually dive into that question, Nana, the current world map on that. If we are talking about GCC countries, for example, they already apply Sharia in general. So using Islamic banking for them actually comes naturally. It's not a big issue. For common law countries, including Malaysia and Singapore, it would be easier. And I'm saying this based on my experience as well, because, I've actually overseen businesses in the countries where they apply common law. Why it is easier? There are two main reasons. The first, because many principles of the common law were actually borrowed from the Sharia. So there are already, basically, I mean, if we are going to make comparison, side by side list, most of them are already aligned. So that's why, if it is common law country, usually when you try to implement Sharia, or you try to do banking according to Sharia, it is easier. And the second, because the common law countries, you have this fundamental notion that everything that is not forbidden is allowed. And you notice this is very much aligned with what I said just now. Al-aslu fil mu'amalah al-ibadah. In Islam, even in fiqh, when it comes to commercial transaction, we go with the basic ruling that it is halal. Hatta yadudul dalil ala tahrimi, until you actually have found a verse, a hadith, or any dalil that shows that it is actually forbidden. So this is already aligned. Basically, it goes hand by hand. That's why it is easier. But the third one, civil law countries, this is more challenging. Because, unlike the common law that basically if you are not prohibited from doing it, you are allowed to do it, the civil law country is quite the opposite. Where basically if the law does not allow you to do it, you assume that you cannot do it. And in Islam, this is not for muamalah, this is for ibadah. Basically they says if you are not ordained, you're not supposed to do it. And now we are talking about muamalah transaction where we need that leniency. And in fact, based on my experience as well, there's a high potential conflicts in civil law countries. When you try to introduce Sharia law or Islamic banking law, there's a potential conflict with the existing written law, especially when it comes to taxation, procedural and administration matters, registration, stamping, and all that. Because sometimes we need to do certain process as part of the structure to make it Sharia compliant and to make it Sharia, that the service that we provide is actually aligned with Sharia. That process may actually entail certain procedural or administrative consequence in civil law country. So, in other words, civil law countries basically have higher or have more homework compared to those with the common law country. Except the GCC, although they apply the civil law, but they are Sharia come first. So, and there are challenges as well, because we don't have the common law, so we don't have, like, for example, no notion of beneficial right and ownership. So structuring ijarah is not only, it could be more complicated, but not only that, on top of that, it could also be costly. So for example, if we were to do ijarah, if we were to do refinancing on the basis of ijarah for your house, for example, Nana, then you have to transfer to me, and I have to transfer before we actually transfer back to you when you have completed the ijarah financing, right? All this will entail cost, will entail procedure and all that in civil law country which you can do away in a common law country. And the law trust, if we want to do a structure with SPV, then we cannot, in many product or services, we actually use SPV to ring fence project or investment. It is not viable because you see the SPV in civil law country, usually actually it entails a full-fledged company. It will be costly. So the idea of going to SPV to make it cheaper, so it is more viable in terms of, reducing the cost of funding, will not be achieved. And different legal principles also on company laws, for example, it may not necessarily support the investment purposes and not necessarily align with the global practices. So these are the challenges that we have encountered when we try to make Islamic finance practice fit into a different legal system, in particular in the civil law countries. With these heightened challenges, of course, I'm very impressed, and I have a very high appreciation to our DSN people, to our regulator, because they have to work harder.
Yeah, we often hear about how Islamic finance institutions they strongly back they strongly support Islamic finance governance, right? But how do you make sure that these governance themselves are actually ethically and financially reliable? Like that means they have that root of foundation that's already ethical and financial that we can rely on them.
Well, of course, the easiest way to make sure that it is reliable, usually when the Sharia governance framework itself come from the regulator. Stop. You know, you have not just the authority, but also considered person who not even neutral, I would say, because they are not even neutral in the sense that they try to protect, right, the public. They try to protect the industry as a whole, not individual or a particular entity. So that's the easiest way of doing it. But the truth, what we have witnessed in the world right now, they have three different approaches when it comes to Sharia governance. Yeah, we have those like in Singapore, it's considered as part of BAU, the business as usual. So they don't have specific Sharia governance framework.
Yeah.
Countries are actually doing it. But again, as I said, this will work okay. I wouldn't say well, it will not work best, but it will work okay. It can actually still help the industry, Islamic finance industry, if you have a strong financial, infrastructure. So as I said, Singapore is fine because you have very strong banking regulation over there. Financial regulation are fine, accommodative as well as prudent. But if you don't have that, yeah. So not only that your governance aspect is weak, your Sharia is questionable. The part of is this practice in certain part of the world? Yes. In fact, this was what was done in the GCC country. You may be surprised. Oh, GCC, why? Because the thing is with the GCC country, Bahrain included, for example, because Sharia is so embedded in India.
Yeah.
So you see, it's just okay. But again, when you don't make it specific, because now even Bahrain actually has already moved since the end of 2017. I noticed they have actually moved towards having their own framework, Sharia governance framework. Because you see, the problem with having it as part of your business as usual is it is not really monitored. It is not necessarily measured because you don't have specific element embedded in the business as usual kind of framework, right? Your normal framework. So that's why it is still important anyway. Whereas the other two approaches, we have the SG framework. It could be 2 tiers framework. It can be 1 tier. Malaysia will be two tiers because you have in Malaysia they have the SAC. In Indonesia, it is arguably 2 tiers as well because we have the MOE, the SN, and all that. Although it is not really clear whether that's really the case because it's it's not like necessarily the MOE can do anything towards the financial institution unlike the SAC. And we have also countries that basically they have it within them. And aside to this, the good news I would like to share here, of course, there has been international movement to standardize the Sharia governance framework as well. That has been initiated and led by IFSG and IOFI. Now they work together towards the revised Sharia governance frameworks. So hopefully, even like, for example, your question, how about those countries that do not have, but they want to make sure that this is something that could be reliable, could be, you could use it to answer to the people, then at least, even if your country has not adopted one, your regulator has not imposed one, well, you can self-adopt the international standard.
Understand. Yeah, so with that being said, right, because different countries, we have different level of economic level, we have different, unfortunately, some countries, they still practice corruption. Yeah. So, I have to ask though, because that when Islamic finance came about, it is to actually, how Islam is about giving and it's about making the lives of fellow Muslim and actually just general population better, right? I want to understand from you though, like, how do you think Islamic finance can be a game changer for underdeveloped economies, or even developing countries. What difference would it make for these folks in these countries?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. And I'm glad you asked that question because you see, unlike the conventional counterpart, or rather we'll say the secular economy, for Islamic economy, Islamic finance, banking, capital market, etc., we encompasses all the sectors actually. You see, when we talk about Islamic economy, we cannot just talk about banking. In Islam, there has been a beautiful distribution. Basically, you do the commercial as part of it and also social part of it. Social financing is inseparable part of Sharia. So you have zakat, you have wakaf, you have infaq, you have sadaqah, you have all this, which unfortunately has not been optimized. Yeah, actually, I've been promoting that even banks should cooperate. And then, by the way, I'll share with you the case study that Indonesia actually doing pretty well on this as well. Where basically, we have to actually leverage on those aspects to make, as you said, Islamic finance as a game changer. A game changer to also help those. So you see the idea of inclusion as part of the ESG. Islam has it since 1400 years ago. Don't do it. You see, this is the thing, Nana. If we are staying true to what Sharia is, we do it true and true. We do it as per the letter and the spirit, and we would like to actually serve the purposes of the Sharia, the maqasid Sharia. It is more than game changer, Nana, because not only that we care about the social, not only that we could actually tell all those, because you see, one of the issue Indonesia is facing right now, also with the use of Fintech and other type of lending through the internet, that has actually put the poor people not in a better position, but in the more miserable condition because of the abuses and the irresponsible lending. Some actually unauthorized as well. So all this problem would not have arise even if we don't have the regulation, if we just go back to Sharia and people are willing to actually, obey what the Sharia has dictated. But that's not the case. That's not the case. That has not been happening yet. That's why you see, on one hand, we have so many zakat money collected, not well distributed.
I agree.
And you see, when it comes to people, we have a high hope that, okay, Fintech will actually be one of the solution, the big game changer to ensure inclusivity. Now we have witnessed, I'm not saying it's bad, it's a good thing, but because of, the technology move much faster than the regulation, that one thing. And the second, which is more important actually, most of the time, is the lack of ethic.
Yeah.
The people. So due to this, what we witness today, we witness more abuse than the proper use of the Fintech, without proper KYC, without proper DD, without even checking whether the person has the payment to the ability to repay. You just use them, okay, take more loan, take more financing, take this. Although I'm like, the good news is they are not Islamic, yeah. But what I mean is the fact that these people could abuse the area. So that means there's a niche.
Yes.
Then the next question is, if there's a niche, where is the Islamic finance player?
Yeah.
You should be there, and you should do it ethically. But because you're not there, correct or not? But they actually take it up. Those people who are not actually, who don't care about ethics, who don't care about Sharia, this is not fair even to the public, I feel sorry for the public. They use your certain services and they say, okay, use more of my services, I'll lend you money, not to worry about the money, whether you can pay for it or not. Not realizing actually when they take the lending, the interest is very high. Yes. No education, no effort to try to make them aware what they are doing. So this is abuse. And this is something that your question about Islam, Sharia is game changer. Definitely, Sharia will not allow this. So by itself, what happening now, the big problem that many poor people are facing, that couldn't have happened if everyone actually doing Sharia banking.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the cycle, right? Like a person needs some money and then they just go to the bank and they borrow and then they end up not being able to pay and then they get into debts and it just continues.
Not that's one thing, Nana. But you see, with the bank, usually bank they have their policy and they are more prudent. So sometimes there are abuses. Yeah, we've witnessed that, but it's very minor compared to the good that they have served, where they do proper KYC, they do due diligence. What this with the fintech, where basically they just contact you through your SMS, through WhatsApp, whatever. They allow you to borrow money without even knowing whether or not you can repay or not. This is where I said, and what they care actually, they don't even mind if some people actually some people will default in the payment. They don't care because they've already made the extra money because of the high margin from borrowers. But this is unethical. This is not allowed by Islam. So this is where Sharia could actually be the game changer. There is a need. You serve the need. You go into that niche, but do it in Sharia way. Then people will not have this trouble, this problem about they are induced to take unnecessary services just because they think, oh, there's money. Why not? It's not even their money.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like it, I think in Singapore here, fortunately for us, we don't see so much of this. But we do see a lot of platforms where we can buy first, pay later, which comes down to the same thing, right? And unfortunately, when we have the lack of financial literacy, this will actually have a lot of impact on one's livelihood.
Correct. And Nana, we have even heard, and we have actually, because it could happen to some people who are close to some people that so that's happened. People even committed suicide because they cannot bear the fact that they themselves and the family are got embarrassed for not being able to pay for the loan, and they know there's no way they can repay the loan because of the interest that has been compounding.
Yeah.
So and as you were hoping that this could be the tool to improve the society and to actually resolve some social issues. On the contrary, you are creating new ones.
It's true. I agree. And today us as women, we go out there and we work so hard to provide for our family. And then, when you're single, it's kind of easy because you only have yourself to take care of. But when you're married and then you have your husband who's going out to work for you, and all these things are happening in real life situation where we try to make end meets and then things fail because the finance system fail on us.
Yeah.
And when we look back and then we think, as a Muslim, we're not supposed to be attached to the dunya.
No.
Right? But then we lack this regulatory so much in the world. And even if we have it regulated in our country, I mean, the leading country, I'm sure they also face these problems. Even they are very carefully governed and regulated by the Islamic Sharia. I think because a lot, maybe if you may correct me if I'm wrong, but could it come from a place of greed? Where...
Well, of course, it's human nature. We sometimes, again, but it's a evil circle that sometimes it's hard to just try to cut it off. But of course, if we definitely it's greed. Everyone has it, as you said. Muslim, we are not supposed to be attached to the world, but we live in the world on earth. So we are attached to it, and we are created by God that we have feelings. Sometimes even if we, especially mothers, we feel that we are not going to do it for ourselves, we may actually tend to do it for our children, for example. So you see, it's self-control is one thing, but most of this more complicated situation that people are facing actually come out with. As a result of the lack of awareness, where they think it's okay, I borrow small money, maybe only like $5 today. When I get my salary, I will pay $5. That's what they think. They don't read a small prince, And then when they end up not being able to pay the 5, they could only pay the 4, and they still have $1. What they didn't realize, within 1 week or 2, they could actually end up with $10. And then within a month, it could actually be 15 already. By the time they have some money, they thought they will repay the $2 that they have not repaid. This is already the $30, $50, God knows, right? Which is a big deal for them. Because if they cannot even afford $5, what does it mean? If they borrow $5, what does it mean?
Yeah, wow. I completely resonate with you because it's so real. It's really real that all these things are happening with so many people, and they fail to see. Maybe I can only blame this on the lack of financial literacy. Yes. I don't think it's so much on the regulators or anything, but
well, actually, I used to say, and maybe I've been saying it for the past over a decade now, when it comes to finance, it takes 3 to tango. Yeah, you cannot just blame one particular one. It's all the 3. See, all the 3 in the sense that when sometimes it is driven by culture, sometimes it's driven by the custom, right? In maybe a better developed country, there are still people who committed fraud, but they may have some ethics even when committing fraud, right? Some other country, they don't care. They don't care. Even they even take advantage over the very poor people that they should have otherwise helped, right?
Yeah.
So when the regulator knows about this, the regulator should do something about it, because that's the reason why regulators are there, to protect the public. And to regulate. When you don't regulate, while knowing clearly that this has been this abuse, because you see, by the way, these people, they have the license, from the regulator. Unless if they don't have the license, then that's a different story. But you give the license, you make the public feel comfortable dealing with this institution because they have the license, and then you don't actually regulate it. Well, I don't think this should be the case. That's what on the part of the regulator, and then on the part of the industry. When we are talking about the players themselves, of course, they should know better. Really, regardless wherever you are, when you obtain the license, you may. I'm sure when you do presentation to the regulator, the whole idea is for you to help people. But when you offer your services, the way how you actually persuade people to fall into it without knowing whether they have the ability to repay, and even you persuade them to have it even when they don't need it, this is something unethical. This is something that you should self-regulate yourself, not doing it to the public. At the end of the day, those people are your people as well.
Yeah.
Again, the third one, you are right, the literacy. But again, literacy, Nana, whose responsibility is the literacy?
Ourselves.
In terms of finance, not necessarily just the public. You see, you come from Singapore, yes, it is your responsibility to read. But when you come from other country, especially when you live in certain remote area with limited access and on that, although I would say it is not an excuse because you can read through the internet, right?
Yeah.
Still, to a certain extent, I would say both has the shared responsibility, especially if it is related to Islamic finance, because you see, in those countries where Islamic finance has developed, has flourished well, we notice that among the initiative, among the steps that they have done, and they have done it correctly, include educating the public. You cannot make the public to actually make okay, you educate yourself, you find your own literacy, you do the reading whatsoever, and you leave it entirely to them, because that will be the last thing they do.
I agree.
So yeah, because even here, the success story that we heard from those countries with very good development, good structure, whatever in place, despite, some actually have been there for a while, but some are not. It's a good collaboration between the regulator and the industry, involving educating and creating awareness to the public.
I think like you mentioned, even here in Singapore, even though yes, we are responsible for ourselves, we still do heavily rely on public outreach, where we actually want to have the platform given and provided to us.
Yes.
Yeah. And Dr. Hurriyah, you've come a really long way. Your journey has been so inspiring. I don't know how you're doing it. Maybe you could share with us a little bit your experience or challenges you face personally as a woman in the Islamic finance world here, because there's always this saying whereby in Islam the women is always placed below the men. But we have a lot, and we have many successful Muslim women around the world who has impacted the world in many, many ways, even outside of Islamic finance. What sharing me your stories to inspire all the other women out there who are building themselves or even trying to find an outlet to have that drive, to do better or to be better. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Nana. Maybe if I need to just do a little correction to this fallacy, and it's quite common with Malays, especially. I'm coming from that background that men actually one level above women.
Yeah.
Rijalu qawwamuna 'ala nisa. Men are stronger than women. They are not better. They are stronger physically. They are physically stronger, definitely. I don't want to compete with men in marathon or things like that, and they are, because Sharia is structured in such a way, it is their responsibility to take care of women. So it's not something to be really bragging about, It's something, it's responsibility rather than privilege. So, and in fact, Nana, how do I find how I could be where I am today or where I was throughout my journey? Well, of course, being a married woman, it was very much all the support from my husband. Because you see, if we live by the culture that Malay woman has to take care of the children, the household, etc., where do I have time to do my work? Yeah. So it's all about sharing the responsibility. After all, the children, you don't make it alone. Yeah. It's a joint responsibility. You share the responsibility. You support each other. And for me, I find it very easy, Nana, because it's my passion. I've been learning about Sharia since I was a toddler. And mashallah, qadarullah, I was actually doing law for my degree, my master's and my PhD. And I do find there have been so many misunderstandings about the application of the Sharia in the banking in the past. Because well, the way how it is done, what I witness, people are bankers first before they are Islamic bankers.
Yeah.
So they are used to certain ways of doing things, and they would like to perpetuate that. So there are certain things which are okay, you can actually do or go on and carry on doing that. But there are certain things that you have to actually change it totally, because otherwise it just like, this is what people call, backdoor to riba.
Yeah.
Prohibited in Sharia, by Sharia. So that's the thing, because in my case, I was learning Sharia first before I learned banking. So it's rather the opposite. So I see the beauty. Some people say, oh, no, you cannot do it that much because, Sharia has nothing to do with banking. And I was like, you think 1400 years ago, when there was Prophet Muhammad and the Wahyu was revealed by Allah through Jibril, Allah wouldn't know that there will be Islamic banking today? Oh, really? Those the skeptic here.
Yeah.
Because we will have Islamic banking today. All those principles, Nana, is already there in Sharia. You just have to go back to the root. And I'm so happy every time I can show people, go back to the root, find it, it's there. And this is where I've been, I've been very happy helping the industry, because in many occasions, I'll show you one occasion, Nana. It was in Bahrain. Well, I could be the most senior woman in that bank, but I'm nowhere near the CEO, of course. So there was this, at that time, the Central Bank of Bahrain would like to replace the post-funded deposit protection scheme with the pre-funded deposit protection scheme. But there has been this concern whether or not it is Sharia compliant if you actually try to secure your own position. So the Central Bank of Bahrain actually sent invitation to all banks, conventional and Islamic, like both, the whole Bahrain, inviting the CEOs to come for this roundtable meeting. And you know what really surprised me, Nana? I was actually called by our CEO. At that time, I was with Kuwait Finance House Bahrain. MashaAllah, he's such a fine and very respectful gentleman. Bu Muhammad, we call him fondly. His name is Abdul Hakim Al-Khayyat. He called me and he told me, sister, you know this matter better than me. You go. And I was like, Bu Muhammad, there is only one seat. Yeah, you go. I don't go. I was like, oh my God. And you know, Nana, I actually went to that roundtable meeting. Huge table, is not really round though. All the CEOs of all the banks in Bahrain were there. So of course they're all men, and they are, maybe I was only half their ages, you know. I mean, like they've been, most of the CEOs in the Middle East, they've been in the position for a long time, right? In Bahrain. So I was the only woman. I was the youngest. And yet, when we discussed the matter, even the central bank let me lead. Why? Because this is where I see the beauty, you know. I mean, like people sometimes have this very wrong impression about Middle East. They think, you know, they don't respect women. They see a woman as superior. No. They respect competency. Because, my dear, who am I compared to all those CEOs at that time? By age, by position, by gender. If you go by the normal measure, the normal, you know, what they said about the Middle Eastern people, right? That it's wrong. That proved it's wrong. And again, you know, at that time, I demonstrated that when you have a problem or a challenge in the industry, the best is to go back to the root. You will find the answer. And that's what we did. Then we have the law, mashallah. That is very something that I will never forget my entire life, because, you know, to be standing there with all those very seasoned, very respected CEOs in the Central Bank of Bahrain, doing what I thought is just a simple thing, but could actually solve the issue, the challenge that they were facing at the time.
Inspiring. I don't think I'll be able to carry myself in that round table. I think I'll have a lot of conflicting things going on in my head. But wow, thank you so much, Dr. Hurriyah, for today. I think I've learned a lot from you. Not only your knowledge and your view, you know, giving your expertise and how much you have gone out there to I wouldn't say sell Islamic finance, but to continuously educate and complement Islamic finance into today's economy. I think it's inspiring. Yeah. I would really like to thank you, and I hope that one day I'll be able to meet you in person. And yeah, inshallah. And then I'll probably have a lot more questions to ask you then.
Inshallah, we'll meet again, inshallah, in person. And thank you so much for having me. Thank you. And I hope it will be useful to those who will listen to this podcast.
Yes, I'm sure, because I think there are a lot of questions that people have these days in regards to Islamic finances. Is it really applicable to today's society? And how different would it be, and how different would it make the economy? Because we usually see like, oh, is there really a market for Islamic finance? Are people really going to use this platform? And, you know, can we make money? I think that's the biggest thing that corporate have these days. You know, like, can we make money if we use Islamic finance? Because we can't charge interest. How do we make money? Because these are the common questions that we get from non-Muslims, actually.
Yeah. And in fact, Nana, I think one of the mistaken belief that people have about Sharia finance or Islamic finance, they think because it's Sharia, because it's religious and involved, so you are not supposed to make profit out of it. It is wrong. It's just that, you know, we don't do riba, we do trade.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, we do trade another form, but no, that's the whole idea why you do banking, because you want to make money out of it. It's not, you know, that's another fallacy that we need to clear up, actually.
Yeah, because I think there's really that misconception of, can you really make money if you use Islamic finance? But thank you so much, Dr. Hurriyah, for your time. I won't take much of your time anymore. It was a pleasure having you here with us. Yes, and I really hope I get to meet you. Thank you for being part of Islamic Finance SG podcast. Thank you.